I was working at a restaurant in Paris. A British couple sat down and immediately started looking around for service. After 2 minutes, the man snapped his fingers at me and said, "Excuse me, we've been waiting ages." I told him I'd be right with them. He said, "In Britain, waiters come to the table immediately. This is poor service." His wife said, "We shouldn't have to wait to even be acknowledged." I explained that in France, dining is leisurely and servers give guests time to settle. He said, "That's just an excuse for laziness." When I took their order 5 minutes later, he said, finally, "In Britain, this would be unacceptable." They left a 1-star review saying French service was slow and inattentive, completely missing the cultural difference. I work at a hotel in Thailand. A British guest called reception at midnight and said, "I ordered room service an hour ago and it's not here yet. Where is it?" I checked and saw his order was placed 15 minutes ago. I told him it would arrive shortly. He said 15 minutes is still too long. In British hotels, room service is instant. I explained we prepare everything fresh. He said, "I don't care about fresh. I care about fast. This is terrible service." When his food arrived 20 minutes after ordering, he inspected it and said, "It's cold now because you took so long." It was actually hot. His wife said, "Thai hospitality is overrated. British hotels would never treat guests like this." I was working at a store in New York. A British woman wanted to return an item without a receipt. I explained our policy requires receipts for returns. She got angry and said, "In Britain, customer service means being flexible. You're being difficult on purpose." I told her it's company policy everywhere. She said, "No, British stores understand the customer is always right. You've clearly never learnt that here." Her husband said, "This is why American service is inferior. You follow rules instead of helping people." I offered store credit. She said, "That's not good enough. I want my money back." In Marks and Spencer, they'd give it to me. They eventually left, muttering about American inflexibility and poor customer service standards. I work at a bank in Singapore. A British expat came in wanting immediate service without an appointment. I told him all advisors were with clients and he'd need to wait or book ahead. He said, "I'm a customer. You should accommodate me. In British banks, they make time for walk-ins." I explained our appointment system keeps things efficient. He said, "Efficient for you, not for customers. This is terrible service." His wife said, "In the UK, banks prioritize customer needs. Here, it's all about rules and system." After waiting 30 minutes, he got served and said, "See how much time you wasted? If you'd just helped me immediately, this would be over." He couldn't grasp that other customers' appointments mattered too. I was a tour guide in Egypt. A British tourist complained that our tour didn't include bottled water. I told him water stops were built into the schedule. He said, "British tour companies provide complimentary water. That's proper service." I explained he could purchase water at any stop. His wife said, "We've paid for this tour. Water should be included. In Britain, tour operators think of everything. You're cutting corners." Another tourist, also British, said, "Exactly. We're used to a certain standard. This feels budget, even though we paid premium prices." They spent the entire tour comparing Egyptian service unfavourably to British standards, despite the tour being comprehensive and well organised. I work at a cafe in Australia. A British customer ordered a flat white. When I brought it, she took one sip and said, "This isn't right." I asked what was wrong. She said, "It doesn't taste like British coffee. Can you remake it?" I explained Australian coffee culture is different. She said, "Yes, but I'm British. You should make it how I like it. That's customer service." I offered to adjust it. She said, "In Britain, baristas ask how you want your coffee before making it. Here, you just assume." Her companion said, "Australian service is too casual. British cafes are more professional." They wanted Australian coffee made to British specifications without having specified anything initially. I was working at a car rental in Italy. A British man was upset about the rental process taking 20 minutes. He said, "This is ridiculous. In Britain, I'd be out the door in 5 minutes." I explained we needed to verify his license, insurance, and payment. He said, "Yes, but do it faster. Time is money." His wife said, "Italian bureaucracy is legendary. You need to streamline like British company." I processed everything as quickly as possible. When I handed him the keys, he said finally, "You need efficiency training. The entire rental in your country is backward." He left a review saying Italian car rental service was painfully slow compared to British standards, even though 20 minutes is completely normal. I work at a pharmacy in Spain. A British woman wanted medication without a prescription. I told her Spanish law requires prescriptions. She said, "But I have this medication in Britain. Can't you just give it to me?" I explained I legally couldn't. She got frustrated and said, "This is terrible customer service. In Britain, pharmacists are helpful. You're hiding behind rules." Her husband said, "Spanish bureaucracy makes everything difficult. British pharmacies trust their customers." When I suggested she see a Spanish doctor, she said, "I shouldn't have to. I'm a responsible adult. Your service is obstructive." She left saying Spanish healthcare was designed to frustrate British tourists and that British pharmacies were far more accommodating. I was a customer service agent for an airline in Dubai. A British passenger missed his flight due to arriving late at the gate. He demanded to be put on the next flight for free. I explained he'd need to purchase a new ticket. He said, "In Britain, airlines show flexibility for loyal customers. I'm gold tier. That should mean something." I told him status doesn't override missed flights. He said, "British Airways would accommodate me. This is appalling service." His wife said, "We've been flying for years. British carriers understand customer loyalty. You're being rigid and unhelpful." After arguing for 30 minutes, they bought new tickets and left a complaint saying Middle Eastern airlines lack British customer service values. I work at a museum in Japan. A British visitor complained that the audio guide was only available in Japanese, English, Chinese, and Korean. He said, "Where's the British English option?" I told him the English version covers British English. He said, "It's clearly American English. The pronunciation is wrong. In British museums, they use proper English. This is lazy." His wife agreed, saying, "We shouldn't have to listen to American accents. It's jarring." I explained we use international English. He said, "That's not a thing. There's British English and wrong English." They complained to management that the museum didn't cater to British tourists properly and should offer specifically British audio guides. I was working at a restaurant in Mexico. A British couple wanted to modify their order extensively. I explained some changes weren't possible due to how dishes are prepared. The man said, "In Britain, restaurants accommodate special requests. That's good service." I told him our chef could make minor adjustments. He said minor isn't enough. I want it my way. His wife said, "British restaurants bend over backward for customers. You're being inflexible." When their food arrived with the possible modifications, he said, "This isn't what I asked for. I told you exactly what I wanted. British servers listen." He left angry, saying Mexican customer service was rigid and that British restaurants understood customer needs better. I work at a tech store in South Korea. A British customer wanted a full refund for a phone he'd used for 3 weeks. I explained our return policy is 14 days. He said that's unreasonable. British retailers offer 30 days, some even 90. I told him Korean policy is 14 days. He said that's anti-consumer. British law protects customers better. You're taking advantage. His friend said this is why British retail is superior. They actually care about customer satisfaction. When I offered repair instead, he said, "I don't want repair. I want a refund." British stores would give it to me. He left threatening to report us for poor service and warning other British tourists about Korean consumer protection being inferior. I was a receptionist at a doctor's office in Canada. A British patient was upset about waiting 30 minutes past his appointment time. He said, "This is unacceptable. British doctors run on time. This is unprofessional." I explained the previous appointment ran long due to an emergency. He said, "You should have informed me. I'd have rescheduled." British medical offices communicate properly. When he finally saw the doctor, he told her, "Your office needs to learn time management. In Britain, the NHS keeps appointments on schedule." The doctor explained that patient care sometimes requires flexibility. He said that's no excuse for poor service. British medical service is more organised. He left a negative review saying Canadian healthcare lacked British efficiency. I work at a post office in Portugal. A British expat wanted express international shipping but refused to fill out customs forms. He said, "This is too much paperwork." British post offices keep it simple. I explained customs forms are legally required. He said, "Can't you just fill it out for me? That would be good customer service." I told him he needed to declare contents himself. He said, "In Britain, postal workers are helpful. You're making this difficult." His wife said, "Portuguese bureaucracy is exhausting. British services are streamlined." After 20 minutes, he reluctantly completed the forms and said, "This would take 5 minutes in Britain. Your service is inefficient." He couldn't accept that international shipping requires documentation regardless of the country. I was working at a rental shop in New Zealand. A British customer wanted to rent equipment but hadn't brought ID. I told him we required identification. He said, "Why?" "I'm obviously trustworthy. British rental places don't make such a fuss." I explained its policy for insurance. He said, "That's ridiculous. You're losing business over petty rules. British companies trust their customers." His companion said, "This is typical overseas. They don't understand service like we do in Britain." When he finally returned with ID and completed the rental, he said this took twice as long as it should. British efficiency would solve this. He blamed New Zealand service standards rather than his own lack of preparation. If you've enjoyed British people discovering the world doesn't run on British service standards, give it a like and subscribe for more. Cheers.